The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Dr. Matt Spalding of Hillsdale College told Washington Watch on AFR that our rights are given to us by our Creator, not our government.
All these rights are equality, consent, all these things depend upon a source outside of ourselves, outside of history, outside of our particular subjective whims, outside of government.
He says Senator Kaine might do well to spend some time with our founding documents.
The assumption of the Declaration is that there are certain things that man can know by his reason, by his thinking, by his created mind about God.
Spalding says erasing God from the equation is an attempt to escape accountability for his freedoms and to his laws.
And a creator God, who, by the way, is also a supreme judge of man's rectitude of his intentions. It's also divine providence. It's clearly there. And they want to so much get rid of that influence that they essentially erase it completely.
I'm Steve Jordahl.
The Texas Republican Party has sued the state to end open primaries, according to the Texas Tribune. People who affiliate with the Democrat or Republican parties in Texas can vote in the other party's primary election. The suit alleges that crossover voting leads to the selection of more moderate candidates and gives non-party members unfair influence. The National Hurricane Center continues to watch the system in the Atlantic Ocean. Fox Weather's Brian Norcross said the system has a lot working against it for now, and forecast models are not yet in agreement as to the system's track.
And then we move on till we get up to a week from now. Can it get to the islands? That's the open question. The Google AI model essentially kills it off completely. And by the way, the European AI model, which we're not showing here, also killed it off yesterday. So the AI models are kind of leading in that idea. We'll see if that idea turns out to be right.
Hurricane Kiko is in the Pacific Ocean and is headed in the general direction of Hawaii. The storm is forecast to weaken greatly before it nears the state. Any impacts would not be until sometime next week. And that's all our time for now. We invite you to find more news at afn.net, and we do thank you for listening. I'm Robert Thornton.
God is at work, and He's calling His people to rise in truth. Truth Rising is a powerful new documentary from Focus on the Family and the Colson Center. See how ordinary Christians choose courage in a culture that needs truth. Watch Truth Rising today and find out how you can become an agent of restoration and hope. Visit truthrising.com today. That's truthrising.com.
Hello, and welcome to the Dr. Nurse Mama Show, prescribing hope for healthy families here on American Family Radio. Here's your host, Professor, Pediatric Nurse Practitioner, and Mom of 4, Dr. Jessica Peck.
Well, hey there, friends, and welcome to my favorite time of the day on my favorite day of the week. It is Friday. It is Fri-yay, as my kids say. And hey, we've made it. We are going through September. I cannot believe how fast this year is going. It just seems like it's going so fast. But we're in September. We're about to be in October. And before I dive into today's message for you, I want to let you know that we are gathering stories right now to play during our fall share-a-thon. You'll know, regular listeners, twice a year, we ask our listeners for support, and it really is a time of celebration. We would love to hear from you. Has the Lord used American Family Radio in your life? Have we been there or given the right thought at just the right time? Please share your story. We would love to hear your AFR story. It could be a blessing and an encouragement to others. So tell us, we're inviting you to tell us how Christ has used AFR in your life. So all you have to do is just call this number that I'm going to give you, 877-876-8893. That's 877-876-8893. That's our listener story line. Just call and give us a minute or two of your story, and you never know, you may hear your story played on the radio during Share-a-thon. So thanks so much to all of you who support American Family Radio. We are so grateful for that. And because of that support, we are able to bring you programming. And I know I hear from so many listeners who have their favorite shows during the day. And I'm very grateful to sit here every day at 2 p.m. Central Time and to be able to share with you hope for healthy families. It is a joy. It is an honor to be able to do that. And today I've got a big dose house for you. And if you've been following along since the beginning of the year, you know we are in a journey, 52 Habits for Healthy Families. There's no magic life hack. There's nothing that is going to instantly make everything perfect. We don't live in a perfect world. We live in a fallen world, and we don't have perfect families, but we can have healthy families. And that has been my own personal journey with my family to overcome generational brokenness. And I can say I have a very healthy family. That doesn't mean that we don't have conflict. That doesn't mean that we don't navigate obstacles together, but we are healthy. And if you look back to January, we started with basic spiritual disciplines. We moved through the early part of the spring talking about some rhythms that you need in your family. Through the late part of the spring, we talked about communication. And all in the summer, we talked about technology, all things tech, because tech really does influence our lives. It influences our habits so much. And we spent a summer talking about technology. And during this last month, I've been talking about safety, because keeping our family safe is something that honors the Lord. And it is hard to keep our family safe online, but we talked about some other forms of safety, and especially body safety and school safety, abuse prevention, school violence. Those things are very heavy on our hearts. So if you missed any of that, go back and listen to any Friday show, and you can catch up on all of the things that we talked about there. And we are moving today into a new phase of habits, and this is my version of the Beatitudes. We're going to talk about ways to be, and we're going to talk about how today we love each life stage, and then we'll be followed with a lot of things. We'll talk about contentment, being a good friend, all those kinds of things. But today I'm going to set the stage with talking about loving each life stage. Now, this is much easier said than done. And Ecclesiastes 3:1 tells us there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. Now, these words were written many, many years ago by Solomon, who was the wisest man who ever lived. And it is still true today. There is a time for everything and a season for every activity. But here's the thing. We have kids heading back to school. We're in that season. And I want to talk especially to those parents for just a minute, because if you're a parent of a teenager, maybe a college student, maybe you have even older kids than that, maybe you're longing to be a parent, but you see those first day of school memories going through our social media, and you see all of these kids going back to school. And a lot of you are going to feel a wave of nostalgia about that. And if you're really honest, you might see parents today posting those photos of their younger kids, and maybe you feel a twinge of jealousy. Or maybe you think, I just have this overwhelming longing for a life stage that has long passed. Because gone are the days of big hair bows, or the excitement over selecting a lunchbox, or maybe those little toddler sticky face kisses, or joy over seeing you in the car line rather than embarrassment, and bringing home artwork that's carefully crafted just for you. When our kids are younger, their problems are so much more simple. And we often are the hero of their story. We are wise, and we are caring, and they respect our opinion. They love us. They love themselves, quite frankly, and they love life with us. And we feel like the center of their story. But now, all of a sudden, you might feel like you're Pluto, where you used to be the sun, orbiting somewhere out there in the cold with maybe debates about, are you relevant or are you not? And those school preparation, maybe if you're in the teen years, you're arguing about clothes, you're reassuring insecurities, you're giving lectures about college preparation, you're telling them, to all these things that are scaring you, that you don't want them to be scared, and you're getting told, don't take pictures because, you're embarrassing me, all of those things. You're constantly pleading with them, get your face out of your phone, and suddenly those things that you found exhausting about little kid back to school seem so appealing. And you wonder, should I feel guilty for not appreciating it more? You wonder, do they miss those days like I do? And what is going to happen on the first day of school that I won't know about? And all of those things, we tend to long for that life stage that's not there. And so today we're going to talk about finding that tension between past and present and loving every life stage. One of the mentors that I had for me as a mom, that was advice she gave me very early on, was love each parenting stage. Find something about every life stage that you're in to love, because every chapter is a book of possibilities. It is all new adventures, and it is really hard. But some of that emotional reality, especially as our kids grow and they get older, we feel a longing for those sweet little years, the best years. And we think about when our kids are small, and nostalgia is natural and it can be beautiful, but it can also really rob us of the joy in the present. So here is the truth that is hard for me, and it may be hard for you. We cannot love who our children used to be more than who they are becoming. And sometimes when we look at those past pictures, we have such nostalgia. Our kids can feel like, well, don't you love me now? Like, am I enough for you now? Like, did you like those days better? Did you like me better when I was at that age, at that stage? And it can be hard because sometimes we like that stage because frankly, we had more control. And now we don't have as much control. And so it's hard not to be nostalgic about that. But again, going back to Ecclesiastes 3, it emphasizes that there are seasons in our life. Each one is God ordained. Each one holds beauty. And Psalm 90 verse 12 tells us, teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. And we can have some of this perspective. Now, when we look at cultural perspective, modern culture often idolizes those peak life stages, right? Like when our kids are young and innocent, or when you're young and you look young, or maybe college years are the best years of your life. When you think back to what is the good old days, what do you think of as the good old days? Those can be great old days, but we can miss out on the presence. And social media really amplifies this because we start to compare what we see with the nostalgia that we feel. It constantly shows us curated memories. How many of you get a time hop and you see this phase of life, and then all of a sudden you start to feel, instead of just an appreciation for that life stage, you start to feel that little twinge of discontentment really start to creep up in your life and think, oh, I wish I was back there. I wish I was in that life stage. I wish that this was before this had happened, before this relationship broken, before this person is gone, all of those things. But gratitude for the past shouldn't eclipse our presence in today. And that is really hard. So one thing that we can start off with is just, what life season are you in? What is that life season? So often we long for another life season, but just identifying what stage you're in right now. Maybe you're in a transitional life stage. Maybe you're in the days of you just want to find that right person. Maybe you want to have kids. Maybe you're dealing with toddler chaos right now. Maybe it's those tween years. Maybe you're launching young adults. Maybe you're in your golden years. What are the joys that you have in the present? I really challenge you today to find some time just to reflect and think, what are the joys of this present stage? What stage am I in? And what are the joys that I am experiencing right now? And a lot of times now, I am really big on tradition. I love, love, love traditions. And sometimes it's hard when those traditions have to evolve, but they don't need to disappear. They can adapt, they can change. What are those things that you loved about the past you could bring forward to the present? But whatever you're thinking about what you love about your life today, I want you to think about the people who are in your life today, and I want you to tell them what you love, what the joys are about your life stage today. You may come in and say, hey, this is a really tough life stage as we just dropped kids off at college, or we're first-time empty nesters, or our kids moved away, or we moved, or whatever it is. But find the joy that you can find in that, because each stage teaches us something different about God's character. Maybe in toddlers, we learn how to die to self, right? Maybe with teenagers, we learn patience. Maybe releasing adult children, that's going to strengthen our faith, strengthen our trust, strengthen our prayer life. And our goal is to have kids who are raised to independence. And so sometimes that can be a really particularly tough life stage, is to go from being in the middle of that parenting rush and then to be empty nesters. But regardless of whatever life stage we're in, we can find joy. We don't need to get stuck in the glory days of our kids' childhood. Now, sometimes what we can do is we can be so involved in what they're doing that we're more invested than they are. And I know that can be really hard. Maybe you're really, really invested in their volleyball and their soccer and their travel club. And then all of a sudden, they don't want to play anymore. And you think, wait, but I'm not ready for that to be over. That's so hard. Sometimes as parents, we can push so hard toward future achievement. We can talk so much about college, about their sports, about their success, about their job, that we miss the beauty of now. So we've got to have a healthy balance. We've got to treasure the past. Keep all those family photo books. Retell all the favorite stories. Those are the best. Celebrate the milestones. We've also got to prepare for the future. How do we teach life skills? How do we instill faith practices that will last through every life stage? Go back to January, by the way, praying, reading your Bible, going to church, listening to music. All of those things are practical in every life stage. And how do we do that? Because God is calling us to steward this life stage that we are in right now. And every stage equips you for the next. We have to trust God's timing, that He will guide you, that He has ordained every day that you will live, every breath that you will take. And so when we come back, I'm going to talk about some of the modern cultural and digital thieves of joy that rob us of joy in the present. What takes that away from us? And I'm going to talk about 3 essential ways that your presence can make all the difference in this current life stage that your family is in. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, love the life stage that you're in. That can be hard. I look back and I see seasons, years that it feels like of trial. But I know that we serve a God who loves to redeem, who loves to restore, who loves to renew. And He is planting seeds that will grow in another season, and we can look forward to that. More help and hope on the way on loving each life stage after the break.
The Song of Solomon tells the story of a king who decided to find a bride.
Rise up, my love, my fair one, and come away.
To everyone's
for lo,
surprise,
the winter is
instead of
past.
choosing one
The
of the
rain is
wealthy,
over,
educated women of the city, he went out into the country and chose an ordinary peasant girl to be his bride. The peasant girl was shocked that the king would be attracted to her. She'd been out working in the fields and her skin was rough and sunburnt.
Do not stare at me because I am dark.
But by the end of the story, that young peasant girl had become a lovely, radiant queen. As she spent time alone with her bridegroom, she took on his characteristics. Did you know that the same thing happens to us when we spend time alone with our heavenly bridegroom? When we spend time in prayer and in the Word of God, we're being transformed by Christ's love. Have you spent time with your King today? With seeking Him? I'm Nancy DeMoss Wagamuth.
Fall Share-a-thon is coming October 7th through 9th, and we're collecting AFR listener stories. If we've ever been a help at some time in your life, we'd love to hear from you.
When my late husband was battling stage 4 gallbladder cancer, I would call into shows, and so many of the programs would actually pray with me and for me, and that brought me so much comfort.
Dial 877-876-8893 and leave us a minute or two voicemail. That's 877-876-8893.
I know, as a matter of fact, that the Lord used AFR, that message about surrendering everything up to God, to help me spiritually grow.
Tell us your AFR story. That number again is 877-876-8893. You might hear yourself on the air during Fall Share-a-thon, October 7th through 9th. And thanks for being a part of American Family Radio.
AFA Stream. It sounds like it could be a great place to catch fish or paddle a canoe. And as good as that is, AFA Stream is even better. It's a resource for life-changing instruction and information with videos like The Biblical Case for Cultural Engagement and God in the Constitution. It's also a source of wholesome entertainment and relaxation with family-friendly features like Ryan DeFrady's Secret Agent and The Pilgrim's Progress, plus access to some of your favorite AFA shows so you can catch up on what you missed or enjoy a favorite episode for a second or 10th time. You can watch a lot of content for free, or you can become a Great Commission partner. Then you'll not only open the door to everything AFA Stream has to offer, you'll get benefits like a subscription to The Stand and some really nice exclusives. Why not get started today? It's easy. Visit stream.afa.net when it's convenient. stream.afa.net.
Even though I walk through the valley, sometimes it feels like a crawl through the valley. But I got a promise that I hold on tight to. I can't lose when I'm right beside you. Yeah, gotta know the plans you have for me when my cup is overflowing. So while I'm in the in-between, I'ma live my life knowing if I get down, you pick me up from the ground. You give me love that don't give out, giving no conditions. You lift me up and up again now. No matter who surrounds, I'll let my hallelujah get loud like a freight train, sunshine or rain. I'll lift you up and up again.
Welcome back, friends. That is Up and Up by Colton Dixon, and that's what we're talking about today on this Ask Dr. Nurse Mama Friday. The prescription for hope today is loving each life stage. Now, you may be in a life stage that you are going through some tough things, and maybe you're going through a life stage that you're loving. Maybe you're feeling nostalgic about a life stage that has already passed. Maybe you miss those days when you were in college or when you were young and just starting out. Maybe when your kids were young, maybe when your kids were all at home, or you're just longing for a life stage that was. Today, my encouragement to you is to develop the healthy habit of loving each life stage that you are in, finding joy in every life stage, appreciating the past, looking toward the future, but being fully present in the present. Now, we've all thought it. You think back to when you were young and you would think, oh, once I'm dating, once I find that right person, then life will be great. And then you start dating that person and you think, oh, if only they would ask me to marry them. If we were married, then that'll be great. That'll be the best life stage. And then you get married and you think, oh, well, once we have kids, then life will be great. And then you think, oh, once these kids are out of diapers, then things will be great. Once these kids are not teenagers, then life will be great. Once they move out, wait, what happened? And we miss those things. And technology and cultural pressures and comparison, they really rob us of joy by convincing us that happiness is elusive and it always exists in another stage. The grass is greener on the other side of the fence, right? But Scripture reminds us in Psalm 118:24, this is the day the Lord has made. This is the day. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. In it. And so we are in this day. So I've encouraged you. What life stage are you in? Are you naming it and claiming it? Because I find that even that can be hard to do. Sometimes people will say, oh, well, yes, I'm here, but we're working on this. And you kind of tell even a little preview about what job you're looking for, what move you're looking for, what your kids are doing. They're in junior high, but they're going to do this. And we even sneak in those little references to the future. But what stage are you in? Be realistic about it. And what joy can you find in that stage? It may be a lot, it may be a little, but just start with one thing. Now, the things that steal that joy from us, a lot of those come from social media. We look at other people's highlight reels. We look at these perfect houses, perfect families, and we think, oh, if I was like that, if my life stage was like that, then I would be happy. Or if my circumstances were like that. And we see comparison across life stages. We see singles who are really jealous of married friends. And we see married couples who think, oh, I don't have that freedom anymore. They long to have maybe the freedom that their single friends have. Or you have parents who are scrolling through old baby pictures longing for what was, or dreaming of someday when they're grown. And we see this discontentment in whatever life stage that we're in. Oh, I wish my kids were older and, I didn't have to lug around this stroller. I wish my kids were younger and I didn't have to deal with this teen attitude. All of those things, comparison is the thief of joy, and it robs us of joy in our current life stage. But we also see things that rob us from the present, like digital distractions. Our phones are buzzing every 5 seconds, and we're missing conversations, and we're missing sunsets, and we're missing, hey, mom, look at me. We're missing those moments because a lot of things we're looking at this life stage, instead of looking at it with our own eyes, we're looking at it through the lens of a little blue box that we're holding up to frame it, to think, okay, I'm going to record this. And we so often become thinking about, I want to preserve this moment, that you don't actually live the moment in the first place. And that's really hard. And, there are humorous examples of that. Like, it's hard to appreciate family dinner when you're simultaneously looking up somebody from high school to find out whether they still have hair or not, or what they're doing, what they're looking like, what is there. Or it can be really a lot more serious, where we really are engrossed in our online life and we miss our life stage that's there. And that is really, really hard to do. And we got to reject those lies of, I'll be happy when. That's focused on the future. I'll be happy when this happens in the future. That's the best life stage. Or the past focus says, well, I was happier when this was happening. Or in the current life stage, you think, yeah, I'm here in this life stage, but everybody else is doing this life stage so much better than me. They have more money, more success, more relationship success, whatever it is, that's really hard to do. So let's talk about some of these modern cultural and digital thieves of joy, things that are stealing our joy in the current life stage. We see it on social media. You see all of these perfectly curated reels, and it makes your messy house feel like, a moral failing. Or you see TikTok trends and you think, okay, well, I'm late if I don't redecorate my living room. Like, my living room is brown and now the trend is gray and now it's going back to brown. And so you find discontentment in that. Or you may see comparison again across those life stages where singles are scrolling through all these engagement announcements thinking, when is it going to be my turn? Or, there are parents who are wishing for their pre-kid spontaneity, or empty nesters who want that chaos back. It is really hard to do. And so it's important if you're single, don't believe the lie that marriage is the starting line for real life. And invest in your friendships. Look at what joys you can find. Maybe it's time for you to travel. Maybe you have time to serve. Maybe you have more time to invest in your spiritual life, and that can be a gift. If you're newly married, don't miss those small beginnings. All of those things, the first really tiny apartment, eating ramen noodles for dinner, having mismatched furniture. I remember those days, and I remember being discontent and thinking, okay, well, one day we'll have a house, and one day the microwave box won't be our dining room table. But you know what? I look back on those days and I think about how much joy and laughter and how much simpler things were there. And so things you can do to enjoy this life stage now are building traditions now. Praying together. What traditions are you going to have that are going to stand through every life stage? Reading the Christmas story. Yep, I did just talk about Christmas, but reading the Christmas story on Christmas Eve or Christmas morning, that's something that you can do no matter what life stage that you're in. Think about those traditions that will stand the test of time. If you are in those days of early parenting, don't wish away the exhaustion. Everybody says these are the longest days and the shortest years of your life. And everybody says one day you're going to miss that chaos. And having been through that life stage, I can tell you, yes, you will miss that. So laugh at the mess. Don't take yourself too seriously. Just know this is the life stage that we're in. I know one of the things my husband and I had to do was say, okay, there's not going to be any floor redoing. There's not going to be any new furniture until everybody's out of diapers. This is the life stage we're in. We're going to embrace it. If you're parents of teens and you're feeling the stress of that, Don't let phones and schedules and stress and pressure rob you of the connections that you have. Look at the time that you have to ride in the car. If you are driving to all the things to get ready for all the future, then take that time to talk, and that can be helpful. And for empty nesters or grandparents, it's hard, but we've got to not spend all of our time longing for the past, because you have a new mission field now. You have a new purpose. You can mentor younger families. You can invest in eternal legacies in ways that you hadn't before. So there are 3 ways that your presence in the present really matters for your family. So we'll walk through each of these 3 ways. And I want you to really do a self-assessment. I'm constantly looking at myself. This is something I struggle with. I know we all struggle with, but there's 3 ways your presence matters. The first way that you need to be present in the present is being present emotionally. Now, this really matters because you may think, I'm physically present. I am there all the time. I am at every game. I am at every concert. I am there every night doing tuck-ins. I am there all the time present. But if you are not present emotionally, it doesn't matter. It's just a hollow shell. Emotional presence is the cornerstone of family relationship connections. And when we are emotionally absent, when we're distracted, when we're disengaged, when we're preoccupied, our relationships are going to suffer. And we find a loss of contentment in our current life stage because we're not emotionally present. Our emotions are longing for the past, longing for the future. But research shows that if you are consistently emotionally present in your family, you are more likely to be much more satisfied with your current life stage. You have reduced anxiety. Even your physical health is better. And children who feel seen and heard in the present, in the now, they develop stronger social emotional skills. And likewise, your spouse, if they feel emotionally valued, then your marriage is going to be more satisfying in this current life stage. Now, the cultural reality says social media constantly sends the message, your life isn't enough. And we compare milestones, we compare achievements, we compare vacations, we compare family photos. Yes, those ones with all the matching jammies at Christmas. And somebody is going to look at those and think, my husband would never. Well, that's okay. That's the life stage that you're in, but we can't let those social media scrolls foster envy and discontent in where we are right now. And a lot of times as families, we just kind of live on autopilot. And what our kids talking is just background noise while we're chasing the next stage or the digital distraction. You can look at social media and there are all kinds of reels where kids are saying, Mom, did you just hear what I said? And it will show a mom, which usually it is a mom looking at her phone and then asking something completely unrelated. Like, did you say that? Did you hear that? Those are such moments of missed connection, and they contribute to dissatisfaction with where we are. Now, when we're emotionally absent, what that can look like is like, how was your day? Fine. Just these really generic interactions instead of sharing our real feelings. Or maybe being emotionally absent means you're at that soccer game, but you spent the whole time scrolling through social media and looking at it. Or maybe you come home at this life stage and you have a messy house. All the sports equipment is just piled at the door and the refrigerator is empty. You can't find the remote control. There's peanut butter on unknown surfaces in or other sticky things, on the wall, whatever. And you complain about the messy house instead of being grateful for the life that is filling it. I know this was something really tough for me, and my husband had to have a hard reality check with me one day and saying, you do realize that people actually live in this house, right? Like that there are real humans with real needs who really live here. We cannot keep this house perfect. I had to let that go. So ways to cultivate your emotional presence are to share your feelings. Like instead of just saying fine, just say, we don't say we're fine. Just say some other adjective. I'm joyful. I'm worried. I'm anxious. I'm happy. I'm relieved. Whatever it is, share those authentic feelings and be emotionally present by responding to those challenges with gratitude. So how does this look? So maybe you ask your teen about their day. How was your day? And they shrug and they say, fine. What does that cost? Well, our kids feel unseen and unheard. They may stop sharing. They may start withdrawing because they think you're just asking me that to check a box anyway. And maybe your spouse starts to feel like your roommate instead of your partner. Maybe daily life just starts to feel transactional instead of relational. But here's the contrast of that. If you pause and really listen and you look to see what is the emotion in this moment, can you name the emotion that your kid is feeling? Can you name the emotion that your spouse is feeling instead of just thinking, okay, what is going on here? Or, what do I need to say to make this conflict pass? What do I need to say to avoid conflict? Or just be completely disengaged, but look and say, okay, I can see that my child is feeling fearful in this moment. How do I respond to fear? Okay, my spouse is feeling disrespected in this moment. How do I make them feel respected? How do we be present? That is really helpful. So pause and really listen. Repeat back what they're saying. Hey, I hear you're feeling frustrated. What can I do to help you? How can I pray for you? Those little emotional connections are really, really big. Sharing your own feelings, just saying, hey, I'm really tired, but I'm so glad that we get to be here tonight. So I'm tired. We're going to have pizza, but we're going to have it together. And we're just going to do takeout or whatever it is. So I want you to think about who in your family today really needs that emotional presence from you. Who in your family most needs that emotional connection from you? How can you give that to them? How can you say, I see you, I value you here in the present? What's one small thing that you can do? Because as we'll talk about some more, that emotional and mental and physical presence, they're all connected. Missing one takes away from the others. But think about that daily absence of emotional attention and what you can do to connect and to make it better. Again, your family, they may not need the perfect meal. They don't need candlelight with jazz music playing from some organic, feast that you've made. Although if that's your gift, you go and be blessed, my friend. They don't need a room that looks like it's ready to go on the market, a house that's ready to go on the market. They don't need a flawless schedule. They do need you here, fully present and right now. And these moments go away so quickly. So today is the stage of life that your kids and your spouse, that your family will remember as the good old days. I love that sign when I see it in craft stores that says, these are the good old days, because one day they will be. You'll think back to that. When we come back, I'll talk about the two other forms of presence that we need. We talked about emotional presence. We'll talk about physical and mental presence when we come back. I'll see you on the other side of this break.
If we lose this cultural war, we're going to have a hedonistic, humanistic society.
Discover the story of the culture warrior Don Wildman and how he went head-to-head with Hollywood, Playboy, the homosexual agenda, and the Disney empire. The movement Don started paved the way for Christians to boldly stand for truth and righteousness in a hostile culture. Watch Culture Warrior today for free. Visit culturewarrior.movie.
When you hear this
is American Family News.
You know what follows is the truth. Your news from a Christian perspective.
Hundreds of teachers are going to have to walk into that school building, and they are forced to swallow political ideology that in many cases violates their very faith and conscience.
If you miss it at the top of the hour, American Family News podcasts are available at afn.net. And sign up for our daily news brief at afn.net.
Here's Rob West of Faith and Finance, heard here daily on American Family Radio.
We understand how important it is for Christians to leave a legacy that will impact generations to come. One way you can do that is through a charitable gift annuity from the AFA Foundation. A charitable gift annuity benefits the culture-transforming work of the American Family Association. It helps ensure American Family Association is here boldly standing for biblical principles well into the future. And the charitable gift annuity allows you to shore up permanent income for life. Reach out to Riley Wildman and the team at the AFA Foundation today to see if a charitable gift annuity is right for you. Call 800-326-4543, extension 345. That's 800 1-800-326-4543 extension 345 or visit them online at afafoundation.net.
Do you believe in the absolute inerrancy of God's holy word? Do you believe in the power of the Holy Spirit to radically change lives and empower us to live like Christ? At Wesley Biblical Seminary, we believe God is raising up a movement of people across our nation and across the world who hold fast to the authority of the Bible and the hope of holiness. We are working today to equip tomorrow's pastors and Christian leaders through biblical and theological education and practical ministry that's accredited, affordable, online, and highly personal. Our programs include undergraduate, master's, and doctoral degrees, certificate programs, and even training for lay people. So whatever your next step is in being equipped for ministry, we're here for you. And if you believe these are the kinds of pastors we need leading our churches in the future, we invite you to learn more about partnering with us through giving. Learn more about Wesley Biblical Seminary by visiting us at wbs.edu today.
When I take a step back, I can see it. All the pain, all the fear we've been feeling. Losing sight of the thing that we're needing, that we're needing. Honestly, I think we just need Jesus. Honestly, I think we just need Jesus. Have we all gone mad? Have we lost our minds? Where it used to be wrong, we say that is right. Honestly, I think we just need Jesus.
Welcome back, friends. That is Honestly, We Just Need Jesus by Tarian. And it is very true in today's day and age. You know, sometimes it's really hard. We long for the past. Now, I am an old soul and I really long for the days of Mayberry. You think about all of those idealized versions when life just seems simpler. Maybe some younger people are thinking, wait, what are you talking about? This is the generational divide that we have. But it is important. It is so important. God calls us to be present in the present. Your family needs your presence so much more than you know. And that's the question that I'm answering today on this Ask Dr. Nurse Mama Friday. How do we love each life stage? How do we not love what our family used to be more than what it is becoming, the work that God is doing? He who began a good work in you will be faithful to complete it. And I've talked about this in one of the previous healthy habits, even in looking back at pictures. Sometimes when we look at pictures, we think, oh, those were the days. And we can unintentionally convey to our family, I liked our family better. I liked you better then. I was happier then. That was a better stage. We need to convey to them, I love who you used to be and I love who you are becoming. And look back at those pictures and think of things that you can see that God did during that time, the ways that God was faithful to you, ways that God developed character traits in your family. You can look back and think that was a really great year, not because you won this or because you accomplished this, but because I saw you have courage that year. I saw you have patience that year. And we can learn to be fully present in the present. So I'm challenging you to name the life stage that you're in, to name it and claim it, to accept it, and to think of one thing that you can think of that is joy in that life stage. I have shared often before, I had 4 teenagers at once. My children are now all getting a little older and I have young adults now, but I had 4 teens at once when I was actually doing my book tour about teens, and I would get the most negative comments when people would say that. And they were not ill-intentioned, but people would tell me how terrible it was, this life stage, and how especially terrible it must be to have 4 kids at once. Now, a lot of times we use humor to hide our own pain, and we talk about things in a way that hides some of the struggles. That's just trying to find a way to communicate about those struggles we have. But I found things that I was determined to find things that were joyful about parenting teens, and I would share that joy back and just try to be encouraged myself and others to be present and to be thankful, because this is the day the Lord has made, and let us rejoice and be glad in it. So three ways that your family needs your presence in the present. We talked about your emotional presence. That's so important. The second thing I want to talk about is being present mentally. So we need to see what our family is feeling at the moment, not just what problems need to be solved, what lunches need to be packed, what logistics need to be scheduled, but we need to make that emotional connection. My family is feeling fearful. My family is feeling anxious. My family is feeling discontent. My family is feeling conflict. But we also need to be present mentally. And it matters, because mental absence, where we're constantly worrying about tomorrow, we're reliving yesterday, we're thinking about tomorrow, it really erodes our well-being. And Harvard research shows that when our mind wanders like that, it reduces our happiness. Even when we're thinking about things that are positive, when we constantly let ourselves go to those other stages of life and think about the contentment that we had there. And if we are chronically distracted, we know more about how our brains work. We cannot multitask. That is a lie. That just means our brains are rapidly switching back and forth, and we don't do it nearly as well as we pride ourselves on doing it. Those kinds of things, if we're chronically distracted, if we're not looking at our family, giving them the gift of listening with our face, but we're listening while we're trying to do something else, our mind is not there, that increases the stress level of your family. It actually reduces your memory. My kids will be first in line to say yes, because they will say, "Mom, I told you that. I told you. And I don't remember. But it impacts our sleep and our overall health. And so mental presence, it's not just mindfulness. We're talking about a key to thriving relationships and personal joy. The things that keep our minds distracted from being present in our life stage with our family is our phones, our tablet, our social media, our computers, this constant need for comparison and validation. We have work emails, we have news alerts, we have all kinds of things that are constantly jerking our heads one way or the other. Having fear, we hear news, and then all of a sudden our mind is consumed with that. I'm sure you were a lot like me when the news of the latest school shooting that happened at the Ascension Catholic School, that's all you can think about. You're just thinking about that. And that can be hard, because we need to, yes, we think about those things, but we need to think about the present and being present with our family and what they need right then. So how this plays out in everyday life: checking our phone at the dinner table while your spouse is talking about their day, thinking about deadlines while you're supposed to be watching a recital, mentally scrolling social media while you're walking the dog and you miss the fresh air and you miss the nature and you miss the interactions. So some practical ways that we can cultivate mental presence are some of those tech habits that we talked about all this summer. Not adopting multitasking. Like when you're eating, you're just eating. When you're driving, you're just driving. When you're talking to your family, you're just talking. And think of it as parking your brain. You need to park your brain in the moment. Like when your kids are talking to you, think, okay, they need me to pull into a parking space here. I need to pull my brain over, pull it into a parking space, stop, and listen to what they're saying. Give them your whole focus and attention. And that is really, really helpful to do. So I want you to think about what distraction right now, what keeps you from fully engaging mentally with the people you love in your life right now. Because you may be physically at the table, but mentally you're planning tomorrow's work. Or parents, say, listen to me, but they're not really listening, and nobody's listening because you think you're not listening to me. And then maybe you can even pair it back. Exactly. Yes, I am listening because you just said this, but they don't feel heard. That's important. Our family members often feel invisible when we're distracted like that. Kids will think, well, then what I think isn't important. This isn't important enough to have your whole attention. And you miss those small but meaningful moments. That is really difficult. So I want you to think about what are the distractions that you can put aside and park your brain so that your family knows that you are mentally present in the present. Those are ways that we can be engaged in the life stage that we're in. The third one is the easiest to do, but the the most important and the most overlooked. So we talked about being present mentally and emotionally, which are a little more difficult to do. But we do need to be present physically. And sometimes we do that, and then we pride ourselves on that and think, isn't that enough? Well, your physical presence is important, but you got to be emotionally and mentally present as well. Now, physical presence can be really hard, though, because we live in an age of digital silos where it's easier to not be present because maybe you're living in the same house, but you're texting each other instead of going to communicate. Those are little micro moments of missed connection, of missed living in the presence. Because if you just text someone, what is your plan for dinner, when they're 2 bedrooms over and they text you back, maybe you miss walking into their room and seeing them working on a craft project, or seeing them worried about something, or see that they've cleaned up their room and you missed an opportunity to praise it, or you missed whatever might be going on, that moment for connection, for conversation. But physical presence, being there in body and engagement, it is critical for our relational and emotional health. Eye contact, I've talked about this before, eye contact for 20 seconds or more releases hormones in our brain that make us feel bonded to the person we're talking to. It's a built-in advantage that God has given families. Having that eye contact, looking them in the eyes for 20 seconds or more, having a hug, having that physical engagement, that supportive hand on their arm, that arm around your shoulder. These things lower our cortisol level. They release oxytocin that makes us feel bonded. Now, the absence of that makes us feel lonely. It makes us feel burned out. It makes us feel invisible. And how does this happen? Well, we may sit together as a family, but each person is staring at their own device, completely engaged in their own little world. Or maybe parents are filming events instead of watching it live. Or maybe you're physically present at the work and school events or family meals, but you're just mentally and emotionally somewhere else. Maybe you're sitting on the couch together, you're scrolling, you aren't talking, you're physically there, you're driving to practice, but you're lost in thinking of what is next. That is important. So think about what are ways that you can engage that physical touch, that physical presence. Now for me, that is always, my office can be a disaster, but I always have an empty chair in my office. And that is an invitation for my kids to come in at any time. They know that chair is there for them. And they can come in and just sit and be in my physical presence. And if they want to talk, that's great. If they don't want to talk, they just want to sit there, they can just sit there. But think about what are ways that you are encouraging physical presence in your family. Is there a place, is there a bar stool in the kitchen where kids can sit while you're preparing dinner? That just invites their physical presence. Is there a chair in their room? When you go in, you don't feel like you're just standing there awkwardly, just kind of talking to them as they're sitting there. Is there an extra chair? Is there a place for you to sit down? In your own bedroom, is there a place for you to sit and to talk? Think about ways that you can cultivate that physical presence, that physical space for shared activities, whether you're cooking, you're cleaning, you're gardening, wherever it is, whatever those family schedules are, that can be really important. So what can you do today to show up fully in body, mind, and spirit? Thinking about your physical presence, your mental presence, your emotional presence for the people that God has placed in your life. That is really important. Don't be alone together where you're physically together, but you feel emotionally unreachable. Look at those things that when you're emotionally absent, when you're mentally absent, when you're physically absent, you miss the moments of joy that God is giving you. And so how can you show up with your family in this present life stage that you're in, body, mind, and spirit? That emotional and mental and physical presence, they're all interconnected. And they're like the 3 legs of a stool. And any absence harms your relationship, your emotional, your physical health, and it diminishes the contentment that you have in this life stage that you're in. By practicing intentional gratitude, being grateful, finding joy in the moment, you can remember that the good old days are not behind you. They're being written right now. And being fully present today creates memories that you and your family will cherish tomorrow. And we can have a vision for our family to be content in the life stage that we're in. Reject that pressure that we have of fragmentation in our families because everybody's overscheduled and everybody's trying to go someplace different. And that can be hard. What are ways that you can come together? The biblical design for family is rooted in discipleship, in community. Those things are godly. And contentment, which we'll talk about a lot more next week. It's not passive acceptance, just saying, okay, fine, I'll be content in the life stage that I'll accept it. It's active gratitude. It's joy in the moment. It's saying, I love this life stage because what it is. And we can model that as parents, as by embracing our own life stage, whether that is more crow's feet, whether that's career shifts, whether that's empty nesting, whether that's launching teenagers, whether that's posting sweet little senior Sunday photos as a celebration of your child growing up. So I want you to ask yourself, what do you love most about this life season? And what can you do to equip your family to embrace the upcoming life season? Every stage of life, every stage of parenting has a God-ordained purpose. And we know there's a time and a season and a purpose to everything. So I pray blessings over the families who are navigating transitions. It's okay to acknowledge your feelings. If you have feelings, struggling emotions with the current life stage, it's okay. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel some loss, maybe even some loneliness. If you have that in that life stage, give yourself some permission to be human in that. But reframe it as an opportunity. What do you love about this life stage? And what is God teaching you? How can you practice being present in the presence, seeking joy and gratitude, and embracing what God has given you? And whatever life stage you are in, I pray that the Lord will bless you and keep you and make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. And no matter what life stage you're in, all of these healthy habits that we've been going over this year are good for everybody, good for body, mind, and soul. Thanks again for tuning in. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I'll see you back here on Monday.